We really like areas that are, there's three most important things that we look for in an area. And it's a, job base, a diverse job base. Some of the mistakes we've made in the past is not doing that, going to areas where there was too much reliance on any one industry, which as far as I'm concerned is the San Francisco Bay Area. I think it's way too reliant on the tech industry. I would never invest there for that reason, but people do. But Chicago meets that criteria. It has such a diverse employment base, growing. I mean, people from California, you probably don't realize what goes on in the brain of a Californian. It's very different. But many Californians have never gone east at all. And they have this misconception of Chicago, which is based on what we hear in the news, which is not great. So, that's what they're hearing is murders. They're hearing high taxes, pension problems. They're not seeing the other side. So that's what we've trained people to do is really look at the fundamentals and not the headlines. The headlines are meant to scare you. I mean, yes, you're probably hearing horrible things about California right now, that California is completely on fire, and it is. But anyway, media, I was in it for many years. That's my background, is broadcast media. Our job is to scare people. It's to get headlines. So don't trust the headlines. You got to look deeper. And Chicago has fundamentals there that we like. And like I said, one of those is a very diverse employment base that's growing. And then population growth. And Chicago hasn't necessarily experienced a lot of population growth, but with the job growth, that, certainly could change. And what a lot of people don't realize when they look at the metros is when they look at just Chicago, they're not necessarily looking at the entire metro area. So even if people might be leaving the city, they're just moving out to the suburbs. And that's kind of the areas that we like to invest because it's more affordable.
The population, just throwing a quick comment there, I think it gets a bad rep because, like you said, people move from the city and they go to the suburbs. And I think in Chicago too, you have a lot of, where was I at the other day? I was in Naperville, and Naperville is its own economy in itself.
Yes.
And these bigger suburb hubs are, people live out that far and they don't have to worry about going to Chicago because there's a huge job network out there. So like you said, I think the population numbers, the headlines are definitely out there to scare people when it comes to population around here, but I don't think it is what they say it is. I know it isn't.
When you go there, you see what a gigantic city it is. I mean, Chicago it's like you said, it's its own little universe. And people from California who haven't been there don't know that. Every time I go, I'm just blown away by what a massive city it is, and so dynamic. And so when you look at statistics, it's really just talking about that metro area. But I'll tell you what, I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I can count on my hands how many times I went to the city. I hate to say that, but most people who live in the suburbs don't go to the city. And that may be true for you guys too. Maybe not as much, but because you have such a vibrant, huge city. But so the job growth, the population growth, and like I said, I think a lot of that is interesting to me because some of the growth is going into the suburbs. And then finally, the third piece of that, the third tier, is affordability. So to be in a world-class city that's, I think the third, are you guys the third largest city in the US still?
We're still the third.
And to have prices in the suburbs where we're getting properties for under $150,000, which you probably get them for even less than that. That's amazing. Like there's no place in California, no suburb that's got that, So you've got the three things that are important to us, and that turns into cash flow. So at the end of the day, it's about the cash flow. It's about the return to investors. And when you have those three elements in place, that's a really positive thing.
So people talk about the taxes being high here, and they talk about the state and some of the other population, all that. But the purchase price or the affordability to what you're saying makes it lines up with that. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the taxes are high and you have to buy a $200,000 house. The taxes might be a little higher, but you're able to buy something for 120, 150. That's a fairly solid property. So the risks or the expenses line up with what you're paying on pricing. So.
Absolutely. And people don't understand that. The first place I started investing was in Dallas. And that's all I ever heard was, oh, the property taxes are going to kill you. And I'm thinking, well, I'm buying a $140,000 house at 3% tax rate, but I'd have to buy a $500,000 house at home at 1.25%. So what's the difference? One cash flows, one doesn't. So I'm going to go with the one that cash flows. It just, and has room for growth. I mean, and it's proven to be true over time, now that I've been doing this for so long, that when there are recessions, it's the higher price markets that get hit hardest. It's the linear markets that tend to do well. Now, were there markets that were there sections of Chicago and Indianapolis and Dallas that got hit hard during the last recession? For sure. But in the areas where there were those things I mentioned, where there was job growth, population growth, and affordability all combined, those areas didn't get hit as hard during the last recession, and they didn't during this one either.
Yeah, me and Tom were talking about this the other day. So our high point in Chicago land in that 2007 was probably our high point. California was already falling at that point, but 2007, the pricing, we never made it back yet on that high point pricing, which most of the other country, both East and West, is gone way past that high point of pricing, which to me basically says there's one, still opportunity, but two, less risk than if something was to happen or to adjust or whatnot. And then at the same point, if pricing does go down and you're buying these for cash flow long term, it doesn't really matter. The last time that everything crashed, 2008, the rents all went up. So anybody that was financed the right way was able to actually benefit from, because there's a whole much more renters, rents went up, and they're able to weather that storm because it didn't matter.